Hi everybody, it's Rose. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And today I'm going to talk about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, and it's a very sensitive subject. It is the subject of depression. So you would never know it, but I had depression for my whole life, up until about 4 years ago. My whole entire life. So let's say 49 years. Yeah, 49 years of depression. I was never really happy. I had a really crappy childhood and ended up, just trying to live my life. And when I, in my early 20s, I went into a very major depression. So I went from, pretty bad childhood to worse. So it started out, or actually when in my teenage years, I had addiction problems and stuff, but I ended up getting sober when I was 20. So I got sober when I was 20 because I was living in LA and I got a DUI, and I had to serve 2 days in county jail for the DUI I had. So that pretty much scared me straight. I went to AA. I spent the next few years in AA, and then right around I was 22 or 23 years old, I started to get like clinically depressed. And this is while I was sober. The depression wasn't like just, oh, I'm feeling a little bad or anything. It was major depression. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I was thinking about killing myself every day. It was going on and on and on. I think it lasted like a couple of years. Back then, there was a huge stigma, especially in AA. You didn't go to see a psychiatrist back then, and you did not go on medication. So it's a lot different now. Whereas back then they were like, oh my God, medication, that's you wouldn't be considered sober anymore if you went on medication. Just to give you a feel of how different it is, 1 in 8 people are on psychiatric drugs nowadays. And I think that might be a little less than what's reality. I think there might be a bit more people on psychiatric drugs. Back then, like, I didn't know anyone else on psychiatric drugs. So I was really the crazy one, of my group of people. There was actually a bunch of people getting depressed at the same time as me. A bunch of us Gen Xers that we kind of didn't know where to turn. We didn't know what to do, and we were going through the same problems. So, and there was like a lot of people getting heavy into addiction and things of that nature. So there was something happening in culture, I think, that where people were just not feeling very fulfilled. They were feeling pretty bad about, the circumstances that we were living in at the time. So when I was like 23 years old or whatever, I started seeing doctors and therapists to try to figure out what was going on. I had a lot of problems, stemming back from my childhood and stuff, but those weren't really addressed. They were brought up a lot, but there was never like any sort of way to work through them. It was just talked about a lot. In theory, it's like, oh, of course you're depressed. Look at your childhood. And, it kind of all made sense to me. It was like I had this addiction problem. I had this bad childhood. Of course I had these this depression and these other mental problems and stuff. So it all sort of fit, like the diagnostic book, the DSM. It kind of like it fit. I could just look in there and go, oh my God, that's what I have. That's what I have. So it wasn't like now where I could look up online and go, what happens if you have a bad childhood, and there's this long list of things. It was sort of like I was out in the wilderness and trying to figure it out on my own. And, the adults around me really didn't know much, and neither did the other, my peers. So I ended up going to see a psychiatrist, and they put me on Prozac or something. I don't know what it was. And I was pretty depressed. I was thinking about suicide every day. I ended up relapsing. So I ended up starting to drink again at that time, to sort of self-medicate this, this terrible depression I had. And during all that, I went on medication. So what happened when I went on the medication was it kind of gave me enough energy to actually follow through with my thoughts. So all the stuff I was thinking about killing myself and stuff, I was able to actually try. So I ended up attempting suicide many times and ended up going in and out of a psychiatric wards for a pretty long time, like around 7 years. So from the age of like 23 to 30. Um, it was like when I was 30, I ended up getting sober. I got stabilized on some medication, and I stayed stable for a very short time, maybe 2 years or 3 years, and I was able to put myself through college. So I had never gone to high school or anything, so this was a big deal. Like, it was actually one of the only goals that I had in my life. I mean, one day, when I dropped out of high school, I was like, one day I'm going to finish college, so I was able to do that. So that was a big deal. And but by when I graduated, it was like, now what? I ended up, sort of being a little bit stable at the time, but after I graduated college, I started to decline. And even though I was working like a job, and trying to live my life, I could never quite fully step into life again after, that initial onset of depression. I really couldn't. So I kind of lived on the perimeters of life, sort of sometimes, engaging and but mostly not. My diagnosis was treatment resistant major depression disorder and anxiety disorder. So back then, the DSM one wasn't as thick as it is now. It was much thinner. This is in 1992. There weren't a lot of people on medications. There weren't a lot of people that were diagnosed with the problem like that. And what that meant was, and what the doctors told me, it wasn't just a generalized depression or anxiety. It was like major. That I was told that I was actually mentally ill. That I was mentally ill, and I was going to have to sort of adjust my life to kind of fit with this new diagnosis I had. Now, I didn't realize it at the time, but it fit. It really did, because I had had this bad childhood. I felt this way all my life. I kind of identified with all these things I was reading. I didn't really realize how powerful that, if somebody says like, this is what you have, like how I became that thing. I started to wear that label like as my identity. So I became, a mentally ill person with, this treatment resistant major depression disorder, and out of control anxiety, and I couldn't like go anywhere without a bottle of pills, like just in case something was going to happen, or I was unpredictable. I really was. So I didn't know if I woke up in the day, if I was going to be able to make it till the night, without having some sort of episode. I really do notice that a lot in culture now. So there's a lot of bloggers and YouTubers that sort of wear this depression as, that's their label. That's who they are, and they protect it, and I did the same thing. If you would have told me, that my medication was possibly not working, I would have jumped down your throat. I protected this with all my, everything. This was me, and you weren't going to tell me anything different. I had suffered so much, and this and that, and this is who I was, and these medicines saved my life. I totally believe that they saved my life, even though I couldn't get from, wake up to sleep, without, fearing some sort of episode. By episode, I mean, mood swings, or, a panic attack where, you end up calling your doctor, paging your doctor because you're freaking out. And back then you had to page them. You didn't go to the emergency room for psychiatric problems back then. You just didn't. So I see a lot of mommy bloggers and YouTubers and stuff, and they're like, oh, this is my bottle of pills. I got to take this. This is who I am, and don't stigmatize me. Well, I can tell you right now, you are not being stigmatized at all. People on medication are not stigmatized these days. There are 8 in 10 people, 1 in 8 people on medications right now, and I think it's possibly more. The stigmatization is over. That happened when I was younger. You didn't tell people that you were on meds. They thought you were nuts, and if they thought you were nuts, they were actually afraid of you. They didn't like say mean things to you or anything. They were just afraid of you, like, oh my God, she's gonna snap. It is much different now. I mean, I could walk down the street, and in fact, I go to a party or something, and most of the people are on meds. And they look at me, if I say, oh, I'm not on meds anymore, they're like, whoa, what do you mean? You know, don't med shame me. I'm like, dude, I'm not med shaming you. If I even mention that I got off meds, people sort of think I'm med shaming them, but I'm not med shaming anybody. I am speaking my truth. So I once was on medications for many, many years, a lot of them. So I ended up, depressed from the time I was, in my 20s, barely hanging on, going all the way down now till I'm 49. All right. And that's a really long time to be depressed. And it was getting to the point where I was done. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I have been struggling to get out of bed for years. These medications, I feel like I'm dying. It's not sustainable. I cannot put another pill into my body. It feels like I am dying. I was really sick with a lot of other problems. I had fibromyalgia. I had, acne rosacea. I had all kinds of autoimmune problems at this point. I just felt terrible. And every day, the only thing that was keeping me going was, the meds. So I would take them in the morning and it would give me a little bit of energy to do some things. And then I would just be, exhausted. So I was, going along on these meds, and I finally was like, this just isn't sustainable anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been living like this with this black cloud over my being. It's in my DNA. It felt like it wasn't just like, oh, I can wake up one day and like, do something to make me in a good mood or read a positive quote. It wasn't like that. It was like impenetrable. I mean, it was nothing could get through this. And I was like, I tried this road for a real long time. I tried, I did everything. I was a perfect patient. I went to all my appointments. I made sure I took all my medications. I never missed a dose. I was, very compliant, like overly compliant. I didn't bother my doctor. I was a very, very, very obedient patient and a good patient. And I did everything perfect. I followed all the suggestions perfect. And I didn't get better. I never got better. So I was, hitting my 50th birthday, soon. I was thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to be 50. And I am still depressed. Before I wake up in the morning, I don't even have to open my eyes yet. And I'm thinking, how the fuck am I going to kill myself today? Am I going to be able to make it through this day? That's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking, oh, it's time to get up. I'm so happy to see the cats or, my husband or whoever. I'm thinking, like, what truck can I walk in front of today? That is no way to live. And I had been living like that for a long time, give or take. I mean, I had ups and downs through it, but it was mostly that. And I was just done. I was done. And I was thinking to myself, either something has to give here or I have to end it because it's just not worth it. So like I called my doctor one last time because I was like I was feeling really bad. And he suggested some med changes, and that's kind of what triggered the whole thing. And I was like, wow, there's no way I can do another med change. There's just no way. So slowly over the next 6 or 7 months, things started to slowly reveal themselves. And I realized, and like things were given to me, like signs and stuff. And I'm not talking like some, sign from God or anything. I didn't have anything like that. It was like, suddenly I went to the library and picked up a book and I read the book and it was about health and, it led to the next thing to the next thing. So this was not like something where I went to like some, guru and he, touched my head and was like, oh, you're cured. There was no special magnets. There was no special shakes. There was no special, healing energy session. There was no special, meditation. So it was the summer of 2014, the very end of the summer, that I really started to think about alternatives. So that was the beginning of my transformation. So in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did and how I did it. But I'm here to tell you that I I've been off of medication. It was 4 years in March last month. I've been off smoking cigarettes 2 years last month, and my life is completely different. I no longer identify with that depressed person that I was for so many years. I don't have a mental illness. I no longer have the diagnosis of depression at all. You would never think that. And, I no longer have anxiety like I had before. Of course, I still get bummed out and I still get anxious, but it's nothing like it was before. So there was a lot of things that happened, a lot of changes, a lot of soul searching, a lot of work. So in 2014, when I had that realization that this was like the end of the line, that you can't go down this road anymore, I was like, basically, I would have done anything. If you would have told me that I had to follow a German Shepherd around and eat his poop for 2 years, I would have done it. All right. So that's where I was at. And I think maybe because I was so open to any sort of thing that came my way, that maybe that was why it was, easy for me to make this shift from being this, psychiatric patient into being free, like totally free. In the next few videos, I'm going to make this into a few-part video series. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges, some of the issues that came up, and some of the things I had to deal with to go through, and how I got from, that point right there where I said it's either life or death, like I need to either die or do something, or, to here. How did I get here? Oh my God, it's been huge, huge, huge move. So I'm really excited to share that with you. I'm excited to talk about this because this is something like that is very, very important to me. And I believe it's a big issue right now. There's a lot of people being diagnosed, being medicated, and I think this is really, really important. So I hope you stick around for the next video. I hope you subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.